streaming. Okay. It's going to go for a few seconds, and then once it's a few seconds, it's probably going to be live. It's probably live already. What's up, all the people? It's Ridiculous Badger coming at you with this thing that I've been doing pretty lately, which is collection spotlights on some of the members of the community. And I would love to introduce you to Boptimus Prime, who is a very active member of the community, especially on Discord, but also some other communities. And we had kind of met originally on the Bobby Skullface Discord server, which has a hilarious and amazing vibe. And then when ShowZ Store opened up their Discord server, he's one of the active members on there. So I'll kick it over to Boptimus Prime. Welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So I got
It's been a long time trying to schedule it.
Yeah, dude, I'm the worst. So thank you for sticking by with me on this one while we try and figure it out. Because I mean your collection is one of those like I think is really, I'll say, special. It's like I think you have a lot of the same like collection tendencies that I do, but you execute them so much better. Like you're always posting your images of like your shelves or rearranging your collection and all that stuff. And we have a lurker here tonight who that must be Solus. Is it Solus?
Yes, it is.
He's the professional lurker. Welcome, Solus.
Yeah.
So Optimus Prime, I think this might even be one of the older images. I think you might have like revamped your collection since then.
No, this is the most recent version currently.
Oh, okay. So hey, I just noticed, by the way, like as I was looking at this, like you've got the War for Cybertron Unicron, and is that purple potato that you have up there?
Yep.
How did
100%.
how did you swing that? How is it hanging there like that?
Just a command hook and some fishing line.
Dude.
You know, unlike Bobby, I'm not afraid of hanging figures from a ceiling with fishing line.
I think it's like Mrs. Skullface that especially hates it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what we'll do is, I mean, this is one of the larger establishing shots, but you sent me a number of really great up close ones, so we'll go through them. And I noticed that in your collection you've got a mixture of figures. You've got like you've got mainline stuff, you've got Legends scale third party, you've got Masterpiece, you've got City Bots. What do you look for in a figure? How do you decide what you're collecting and what you're going to go in on?
So I guess it should go back to when I got back into it to start in 2019. I found a figure, in a Walmart or a Target. And I hadn't bought anything since Combiner Wars. And I thought the figure looked good, so I picked it up. I think it was the reflectors that were amongst the first ones. And from there, I kind of just meandered about trying to figure out how I wanted to put things together. And before I moved, I didn't have a space like I do now. My office is something like 200 square feet. So I have all the space in the world basically to display things. So I was kind of limited to mainline because they're meant, both in terms of scale and price to be displayed by those who may not have as much display space, right? So that's how it started. And then eventually I started going online and watching reviews of things, and you pick up Masterpiece, Scale, and Third Party, and all those other companies that exist, and you start seeing what it can really be, because Hasbro has to operate in a specific way. They can't just produce only $150, $200 figures. They have to appeal to a wide audience, so the quality of the figures is definitely not the same. And I guess like most collectors, I got into it the same way. I watched the show in the late 80s or early 90s when I was a kid, and the Masterpiece figures represent what everything should have been. You get the toys from back then, and they really weren't the same. But now you can see them coming to life, both by Hasbro and by the other companies. So I tend to buy just what I want to purchase in general. I don't really have a preference, because mainline has some very strong offerings, despite what people say and think. But when you're kind of comparing apples to oranges in most of those cases.
I think it's amazing that, like, I agree with you so much. When I got into this, it was when I was a kid. It was in the late 80s, early 90s. And then I kind of fell off, but then I got into collecting as an adult. And coming into it in the 21st century, the stuff that you see, the mainline stuff, is fantastic compared to what it was. And I think, like, the MP stuff, to me, it looks the way that I imagined the stuff looked. So for me, it's like, it's all a nostalgia trip, you know? But yeah, you can't expect a $30 figure to be on par with the $100 figure. It's not reasonable, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And that doesn't mean that those who critique and criticize Hasbro don't have any legs to stand on, because there are definitely flaws. Yeah, you can, in that picture you were just showing, that sludge figure on the right has horrible joint tolerances, and that's on Hasbro for not maintaining the QC from the first two. But at the same time, I picked up the reissue of Fancy Toys Swoop, and the ankles on that one are some of the weakest I've seen on any figure in any scale. So it swings back and forth.
And it's interesting, like, that you bring up, and I find it's pretty easy for me to be critical across the board, but also, like, celebrate what I consider are good design decisions or good releases. And I find that that many people, I guess I'll say an outspoken minority, because we don't really know, but there's a lot of people who, they're almost like criticizing figures specifically for their own confirmation bias. Which, like, to me, listen, when I'm a kid buying a toy, I get it. I'm in my late 30s now. I'm prepared to look at something and go, yeah, I overpaid on this, or yeah, I love it, but it's got problems, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I do think, by and large, that the mainline is amazing these days. And I think, like, you don't get, like, say, like, one of the categories that's very difficult to get in third party or masterpiece scale is, the Titans. Like, you look at some of those mainline Titan releases that are $200, and for what you get for them, like, they're pretty fantastic. Especially considering, like, if you want a third party company to come into that space at, like, our masterpiece level of quality, you're gonna easily spend $400, $800, $1,000, and it's like, do you really want to on every character?
So,
Yeah.
Boptimus, Grand Maximus or Fortress Maximus? Which one are you taking? You gotta choose one.
Fortress.
Okay.
I was gonna say, it's clearly gonna be both. And it's funny because I think, like, one of the ways that, like, we first came in contact with each other was on the Bobby Skullface server, and there, like, the vibe there is amazing. Like, anybody who offers, like, hey, should I buy this or this, and, like, immediately the answer is, well, clearly you should buy a set of this for alt and bot mode, and a set of this for alt and bot mode. Like, if you go Grand Maximus, like, hey, Grand Maximus or Fort Max, like, clearly you need 2 Grand Maximuses and 2 Fort Maxes. I love the vibe there. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's all about the escalations. Too much money, not enough sense in that community.
I think we're all kind of like, I mean, it's all kind of tongue in cheek, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I do think it's awesome. And, I mean, I'll say, like, I don't think he was one of the first reviewers that I checked out, and this is something that we were saying before, like, for me, at least, like, he comes off as one of the most genuine, and I just kind of gravitated to that, because in my previous life, as, like, I used to stream mobile games, and my thing was, on the mobile game that I played, I was the guy who would not work with the developers, and I would, criticize the developers for doing things. But, like, obviously, if they do something good, I'm all about that. So, like, I always felt like I really liked that about him. And I find that, like, that's one of the things about this fan base is, like, they're open to criticism. So here it looks like we've got the Fans Toys acoustic wave, and then these are the MMC tapes, right?
That's correct.
These look
I,
amazing.
I I went out of my way to find the MMC tapes because the build quality on the Fans Toys tapes is poor, and two, the tapes themselves that MMC released outside of Laserbeak and Buzzsaw, I feel are more in line with what the characters represented in the show in terms of the scale that they match all the other figures in the Masterpiece scale.
Yeah, they were just like they weren't tiny. They were like kid sized, right? Compared to the other bots.
Yeah, for sure. They should come up to the shins on most of the masterpieces.
I'm still meaning to pick them up. I think there's such strong releases. I've got the Ravage, and I love him. He's awesome.
That's
So
the hardest one to find.
really, the Ravage?
Yeah, they've done a re-release of the rest of them, but they did that version of Ravage, the original one, and that transparent one, and nothing since.
Yeah, it's interesting because I find that like so. This is one of my problems with the hobby, and I'd love to know your take on it. It's like the it could go from like a figure being super available to suddenly like you have to sell organs to get it like within the span of 6 months. And like how do you deal with that? Like if you've got a spot on your shelf and like, hey, I want the MMC tapes here. How do you deal with the fact, like, let's say Ravage was only going for like $300, which would be ridiculous. Would you then go to another offering, or would you just kind of hold the spot?
Well, I did have the Takari tapes there for a long time before I was able to find the MMC tapes at a reasonable price. But in general, if something either hasn't released or I don't foresee it being, manufactured or re-released, I'll pay the aftermarket price. I did that with the three not re-released Dinobots from Fans Toys.
I've found that that's the way that makes it easiest to sleep at night, which is not everybody's take on the situation.
If something's too expensive, and I have my own price break points,
Right.
I just won't purchase it.
Yeah, I find like sometimes getting second best doesn't do anything for it. And like or if like the deco I want isn't available, I have found that sometimes buying the lesser deco doesn't help me at all. Cuz every time I look at it, I'm then going, well, I wish this were this other one, and it's almost better sometimes just not to go in on it.
It's kind of like a sunken cost fallacy, because if you think about it, what you're doing is you're spending X amount of money, which is definitely not zero, right? For a
Right.
placeholder. And every time you look at that placeholder, it's still not what you wanted, but it's also something you spent money on. Like, let's say I wanted like the green Fan Toys G2 Sludge, or the Triceratops. And I don't know if there's like another color. I don't know if there's like a green one and a red one or whatever. But like, let's say I have like the green one, and it's a Fans Toys Dinobot. It probably cost me like $300, right? But let's say there's like the red version that's like, I don't know, like $600, right? So I settled with the green, but then I'm like, I settled with this for $300, and you're just like, why did I do this? So it's like then I have to sell this later when I buy the other thing for more. It's like it just reminds you more that like I've spent money to fill a hole that doesn't actually fill the hole. It just reminds me the hole exists. And that's my biggest issue with like the placeholder or like good enough mentality. Is like all you do is you spend money to remind yourself you have a gap instead of just coping with the gap. I hope that makes sense.
I don't know how much I necessarily agree with that, because unlike some other fandoms where when you buy a figure, that's it. It's the figure you buy. Transformers or transforming mecha in general have the caveat of, well, you can just throw it into whatever other mode and start building a separate display. And that is a very privileged statement. I understand, because not everyone can afford to spend whatever the amount of money is on two figures, one figure, let alone two figures when the second one is the one you want. But from the other side, these Constructicons are not the masterpiece devastator that people want, that people want Toy World, but they function perfectly well in the robot modes as a shelf presence.
Yeah, I think you bring up a very good point, which is like, what other value can you get out of a figure besides it being like the platonic ideal to you of that character? And there's also another way to look at it, right? There's like the leasing versus buying way of looking at it, where if you're looking at you getting a placeholder now, understanding that you're going to sell it, let's say you buy it today at 300, you might sell it next week at 250, and you might consider it, well, that $50, it got me a week of that display presence, and obviously the times are, it would be months or years, but there's also another factor, which is plenty of these figures only go up in value. Like, if you're buying a Fans Toys figure today, except for, like, their weird wonkiness with starting to, like, reissue figures due to, like, KOs coming on the market, you could be pretty much assured that that Fans Toys figure, as long as you don't mess with it, it's only going to go up in value. So it's kind of this weird... It's this weird dichotomy. There's also, like, plenty of situations where, like for example, Iron Factory Tarn was such a popular figure and remains a popular figure, and for about 4 years, it was going on the aftermarket for like $200 when the original release was like 30. It was going for $200 up until like something like November, when Iron Factory said that they're re-releasing it, and then it shot, like, I watched eBay listings go from like $200 to $40 overnight. It was amazing. So, like, there's this, unlike official figures, there's this like inherent unknown of when is my collection gonna just like take a nosedive in value.
So I come from the world of trading card games, where that's a very real concept. Your card can be reprinted and be worth nothing, but I port from that to here. None of this has any value outside of what it means to me, because this isn't. You can't look at things. You can't look at physical objects that aren't highly valuable as anything valuable. You can't look at Fans Toys Galvatron like a car.
Right.
So while there is a curve where you can make money buying and reselling collectibles, it's not a sustainable model long term. Not that it doesn't exist, and that there isn't value in action figures and Lego sets and all that kind of stuff, because you can definitely make a living doing it, but you can't look at it as a long-term investment, because it's not. If you're gonna throw money at something, just go buy something that has actual value. Go get a bond or a stock or things like that.
These are things we tell ourselves. You know what I mean? In order to like justify buying the Fans Toys Galvatron toy deco. Well, I've got the movie deco. It's only going to go up in price. Therefore, I don't have to consider this an additional investment. And you're absolutely right. You can't feed your family on Fans Toys Galvatrons, right?
Yeah.
Watch me.
If all of these were to go up in flames, I wouldn't have any love lost, because this is just, they're things. They're a representation of something I love, but they're literally just things. And I do love the things because I have a whole wall in my office dedicated to them, so don't take that as any negative connotation. It's all positive.
Yeah, you're very practical about the way that you look at this, which is listen, I mean, it's great that we all have so much emotion in it. And I mean, obviously you have emotion in it too, but it is refreshing to hear like the purely practical end, which is like, buy the things you want to buy. If it goes up in value and you no longer want it anymore, sell it. But don't consider that anything except luck. You know, that wasn't like you making a good investment. You know, these are the only reason that these things go up or down in value is because there's another jamoke like us on the other end going, I didn't buy this when I wanted to buy it. So it's only because it has value to you and to them that it actually has any value. If you were the last Transformers collector on the planet, this would all be worth as much as the spare parts, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Man, I hate that King of Power figure. It is not good.
Which one? The
that Grimlock, I really don't.
I
really don't like it.
I recently
Let's go.
traded my oversized MP8 for this. And honestly, if I knew that they were going to put out a comic deco, I might have just went to the comic deco. Because it is... Listen, I got it because I've got the other Gigapower Dinobots, but it does have some wonky proportions, man. And those ankles are just trash.
Yeah, I went out of my way to find Fans Toys Grinder because I had MP8 and I didn't like it. And then I picked up this Gigapower Grimlock. I don't really like it. So it's going to go into alt mode on a shelf and Grinder's going to take its place.
So how do you deal with the fact that Grinder has like that different... It's a lot shorter, man. Like, do you feel like that's still going to fit in with the Sludge?
Sure. So the only Dinobot that I have that doesn't scale well with all the rest of them is Scoria because it was released before the rest.
Yeah.
And if I could find Cesium for, not $500, I would purchase it.
Does that Gigapower guy really not have like ankle tilt?
It has opposite ankle tilt. So like instead of him being able to like move his hips out, it's like you could get like a slight walking pose out of it, but you really can't because of the bulk of the calves. So it goes the opposite way. It's really weird. And you don't need it for transformation, so it's like, why did they do it, you know? Just give me no ankle tilt rather than extra engineering for something I'm not going to use.
Yeah, I don't like that figure.
You got to use the knees if you want to do anything like with the ankles, which is weird. I do think it looks pretty, but
Oh, I'm not taking it away from anybody that enjoys the figure. I just looking at that picture, it's almost as tall as Jetfire, which is not how that scale works. Jetfire's taller than all the Dinobots, and it doesn't match deco-wise to the Fans Toys Dinobots.
right.
If I was going to buy the rest of the Gigapower Dinobots and have them by themselves, that's a different story. But
Yeah.
with this experience, I can't in good conscience buy the rest.
I'll tell you. I mean, I've got Sludge and Swoop, the Gigapower ones, and they're friggin' fantastic. But yeah, it is odd that the leader bot is such a quote unquote weak release. You know, it is very weird. So
I don't know, man. People might turn around and say the same thing about New Age Ymir in like a year and a half when it's compared to like the other 4 New Age dinos. So
I don't know, man.
it is what it is, you know. Perspective change over time.
Yeah, but like you look at New Age Ymir, and it ticks every single engineering and design box. You know what I mean? Like there's some things that don't change. When Gigapower Grimlock came out on the scene, everybody looked at it and said, "Why doesn't it have ankle pivot?" You know, like that's...
no, I don't mean like as in like an overall thing. I just meant like in comparison to his compatriots, because I think they're even like Ymir was great, but I think they might be elevating it.
Yeah,
You know, so like it might be one of those things where like the fandom, like, you know how we go, like we compare things on I want to say extremely inconsistent parameters, right? So like the better something is, like the more it I think the more it gets talked about, like the more like it elevates the discourse. So like you get into that really like deep nitpicking, right? And then when you compare that to something that comes down the line, like the same series, like the same set of Dinobots, maybe all of a sudden you're just like, well, I know this one came first, but the ones after are better. And like, damn, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that, like
Yeah.
that feeling of I don't know how to say it. Like it's like almost like something was like so good that it made something else that came before feel a bit more inadequate, but it's also so good, and you're just like a bit conflicted on that.
Bro, can I just say over here, did you not shut the fan off before you took this picture?
Oh, fuck no.
I love it, dude. I'm sorry. I love these AT-ATs, by the way.
The mother AT-AT is shielding her young.
I love it, dude. Dude, that's awesome. So, what are some of your favorite third parties?
I really, well, you picked a picture. I greatly enjoy
Yes.
figures because of all the masterpiece third party companies, they're the ones that are actually the most like the toys
Yeah.
from when I was a kid. You can quote unquote play with these toys and not have to really worry about anything being destroyed. You do the same thing with a Fans Toys figure, and, you're liable to end up with the leg snapped off.
Yeah, and
That
it to me the fans hobby figures look like how I thought the cartoons looked, you know?
like I can see that and agree with that. I'm not one so attached to how the show literally was that I can't separate figures that came from quote before the tune off the screen accuracy
Sure.
began. I don't care that if Fans Toys was to release a new set of Dinobots and they were all extremely tune accurate, I wouldn't go out and purchase them. I'm not that attached to it.
I
I
just
enjoy New Age a lot as well.
yeah, dude.
A lot of the same reasons as Fans Hobby.
New Age stuff is great too. Those are some of my favorites. And like I remember having Power Master Optimus Prime as a kid, and like I freaking love that thing. I don't know, there's something about it. It just ticks those nostalgia boxes for me.
Oh, that's a very recent picture.
Yeah, I did scrub. I do this thing where even though you send me pictures, I like also look for pictures because I'm like, where are the pictures that you didn't send me?
No, that's fine. I actually really enjoy both of those figures. Well, a lot more than I thought I might have. Uh, Grinder was, I guess for its time, because it's based off a mold that's 5 or 6 years old at this point. It's great. Its transformation's fluid. If there's anything that Hasbro understands more than anyone else, is how to actually make a figure that works both ways. And that's the thing I think most third-party advocates dismiss the hardest from Hasbro. They have to be able to engineer figures for, literal children, not metaphorical children who are in their 30s.
I think it's interesting because I think that's such a good point because I think with third party these days, and if this isn't your perception, let me know I'm off base. But I feel like third party these days, generally, they're looking to hit one mode. Maybe they're looking to hit both modes, but they kind of don't seem to care how they get from point A to point B. Like, whatever you need to do to make it look right. However, you got to flip 10,000 flaps and like hook tabs and tension and bend plastic against plastic. That's all fine as long as the modes look good. I feel like Hasbro and Takara in general, the engineering is on point. They might have a difference in budget, but they have like that saying like the masterpiece moment. Like it seems very true to me that the engineering is done very well.
Well, first of all, you just described transbots, so we're gonna leave that one on the table. But the aha moment, that masterpiece moment, yes, there's a reason it's it came from the mainline company and not a third party one. A lot of the third party designs, a lot of the third party concepts, in terms of engineering, are almost directly stolen from Hasbro. Combiner wars delay, is a
Right.
popular phrase among third party reviewers. It came from a mainline concept. And it shows that Hasbro really does understand what they're doing, even if third party fans don't want to see it. Not that they can't see it, because there are plenty of third-party fans that will willingly acknowledge that Hasbro does put out good product. But there are those who are also, Hasbro can't put out a good product because it's not on the level, it's not the quality of a third-party figure.
Listen, dude, it's like if you want to make every one of your releases over $200 retail, then yeah, you could put out a fantastic looking product every time. You know?
I just want to say, I'm very jealous of that Japanese Astro Train. I'm getting mine soon, but I'm very jealous of that. Looks fantastic. I like that photo.
It's great. I enjoyed the original release of Thomas when it came out, and when they announced they were doing the 2 decos.
Gorgeous.
I skipped the North American version and went for the Japanese version.
Dude, that looks so much better than the renders. So,
100%.
Where do you stand on non-transforming Transformers?
Oh, I'm a big fan of those too. So, Transformers as a concept is not just pieces that convert. And the word convert is very specific because Hasbro has it trademarked. They don't call them transformations, they call them conversions. And figures that don't convert don't have to make the same sacrifices that figures that do. So Flame Toys, 3-0, all of those companies that put out non-transforming or non-converting figures, they have the ability to ratchet it up, 1,000 times higher than anybody in the third-party scene could ever hope to match.
I just fell into this rabbit hole where I fell into the Flame Toys rabbit hole hard, and I've been getting some 3-0 stuff, and I realized I didn't know how I would feel about it when I first ordered them, but as soon as I got them in hand, I it wasn't even on my radar that they did not transform because of what they pull off. It's truly amazing.
Well, they pull all of that extravagant engineering off because they don't have to make any sacrifices for transformation. Right? 3-0 figures are straight action figures at a $400 price point. You can 100% tell that these are figures that are meant to be posed the way, like G.I. Joe's human figures are meant to be posed. That's it. They're human skeletons in a robot body.
And it's just to me, I put my stuff on a shelf like you do. I mean, I don't know how you futz around with your figures or manipulate them or how you get your jollies. Like for me, I basically taking it out of the package, posing it, screwing around with it a little bit, taking a few pictures, then put it on the shelf. And every time I pass that shelf, I look at it and I smile. And that's my interaction with these figures. Maybe once every couple of years, I'll take that one down and futz with it and repose it, or I'll rearrange figures. But it's rare that I'm ever sitting around transforming Transformers.
Go ahead.
No, my bad. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to say that I can agree with the sentiments that are being passed on around here, because I remember when I first saw a 3-0 figure that snagged my eye, I was like, man, I don't know. Do I really want to spend $230 on basically a overpriced, highly painted action figure? And back then I thought it was a waste of money, or that it wouldn't be something that was good for my collection, or I had maybe this elitist perspective that there's no engineering in that thing, there's no technical value to it, it's just an action figure. But my love for the design was too strong, and it frankly blew any other rendition out of the water, brutally. This was a Bayverse design, so it's night and day, right, between the 3-0 approach and an MPM approach. And I got it in hand, and it was that Danny DeVito gif everyone posts, where he's in the theater and his eyes are just wide and his mouth is open, and he's I get it, right? Because when you actually handle one,
yeah,
you get to see it's not even they don't have to the engineering inside is almost sometimes equally impressive as a transformation, right? My 3-0 Optimus has butterfly joints that don't break the sculpt at all. You can't even tell he's using his butterfly from only maybe one angle, because it's entirely integral. His entire torso like entire parts of his like deltoids and everything shift with the butterfly joint to maintain it. Like he has like 3 different pieces hidden inside his stomach, so that when you use his ab crunch, you can't actually tell like there's a gap. Like I've never seen a transforming figure pull any of that stuff off. It's crazy. So I just wanted to add on to that like there's definitely value there that a lot of people just dismiss because like they say that they're not transformers to them, which I think is weird because these are characters as much as they're things that convert from cars to robots. So I don't think it's like illegal for it to be non-converting. But yeah, sorry, bit of a tangent.
Nice. It's true though. They have their space. They have if I was to have to restart all the way over, right, I had sold every single figure off, I would only collect Flame Toy figures. They're the ultimate for all the figures I've interacted with, they're the ultimate representations of what Transformers can be as a franchise.
Every time I've opened a box, and I realize this is starting to sound like a Flame Toys commercial, every time I've ordered a figure and it's arrived to me and I open the box, like, I completely forget how much money I spent on it. You know, like, it's just immediately leaves my brain, and I'm like, I love this thing. This was a great purchase. You know, they feel so amazing. And also, there's something to be said. Like, yeah, you're spending $400, or maybe you got to for more or less on the aftermarket, whatever. But when you get that box feels like a premium experience. It feels like you spent that money and they respected you for it. Like, I got the Robozen Optimus Prime, and when it came in stock, Hasbro overnighted it to me. And which I felt was just like a class move, you know, because of how much you spend on it. It comes in its own mailer, then it's got the foam insert. Like, everything about it feels premium. And there's something to be said for a company putting in those extra few bucks to just help you feel like you made a good purchase that I really appreciate.
100%. On that subject, I will never buy electronic Transformers because it takes away some of the what I feel is the magic of the franchise.
Of like you doing it.
Yeah, there's tangible and intangibles about converting your own figures and understanding the steps yourself. I don't. Robozen Optimus Prime and Bumblebee and their Primal. They're obviously great figures, and they can charge the money they charge because they're that good. But they're kind of just a party trick because you're not going to just leave it turned on and.
Well, yeah. Right, because you can't. And like the thing can't even hold its form when it's not turned on, which is like a little bit weird. But yeah, I totally get it.
But that much can be said about combiners and large format figures. Anyway,
yeah. I mean, there's positives and negatives to everything. This is all about like what scratches that itch for you, because like you said, this is all personal. None of this has any value except what you ascribe to it. I love what you did here, by the way, with this Millennium Falcon in the coffee table. So
I spent a fairly long amount of time trying to find a table that would fit it. And it was just, there was some advertisement on Wayfair, and I was like, oh, there it is.
That is. The table.
And
you, dude, when you see that, you gotta jump on it immediately, because nobody is designing furniture to fit your nerd stuff into, right? Yep. Good acquisition. So then I wanted to go in. So we talked a little bit about Flame Toys, and this drift is fantastic. But I wanted to go to. I wanted to go to some. You've got some new age figures that like this to me is like. Oh, wait a second. This one, I know we talked about this one.
Yeah.
This is like one of the most expensive pictures on the planet.
Like sometimes you just gotta, actually play with your toys.
Okay. I thought you were gonna say you just gotta flex.
Well, I mean, that's
is that the summoning circle for Fans Toys Fortress Maximus?
No, it's the summoning circle for HasLab Unicron. Get it right. Those are figures.
Okay, I see. So you're gonna have to buy like every single like Make Toys and Mastermind Titan, and then put them all in a circle, and then you can summon Fans Toys Fortress Maximus, right?
Look, the person who can get on that and actually do it, fantastic. Not me.
So, okay, we talked the best companies, and I realized that I said third party, but let's knock third party out. So, Fans Toys, we talked a little bit about a Fans Hobby. Flame Toys, we talked about. New Age. This is like when I know, like when you started dropping these images on the Bobby Skullface server, I was like, this guy has a collection style that I could get into. And I remember there's this point where like you posted all of these David and Octavian molds, and then you were like, okay, I got them all. And like me, like the shit thrower, I was like, I don't see Hate Playing Magnus on there. And then like the next day, New Age dropped like, oh, we're doing a battle damaged Optimus Prime, and it's coming with a Megatron. And you were like, for fuck's sake, guys.
Yeah. And they did. There's another one. There's another David,
Yeah.
like with the new engineering. That was.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The new one.
Yeah, the reissues with the new engineering. Yeah, for the tune and the toy.
There's two of them.
Listen,
Son of a bitch.
you just
I
every time
think they're
this
doing
guy
more as
finds
well.
out.
because they haven't
More
done
for it.
Evangelion yet. They haven't done Evangelion yet, or Burning Convoy, or any of like the Bape convoys. And since Doctor Wu did those, I think New Age is feeling kind of challenged. Like they're not. They feel like someone else is like tapping into their slant. So I think they're gonna get, because New Age is like really petty, right? Like I remember they dropped their Omega fully ready to go the day after Pengu did, just to like show out, like the tell KO company like fuck off, right? So I feel like they're gonna pump out some more using the new engineering for like Evangelion or Burning Convoy, just to like show up Doctor Wu, even though they don't compete in the same scale. I just have a gut feeling there's more coming.
If they do that for new unique variants, I
Yeah.
would purchase them. But I'm not going to go back and purchase the same variants
Right,
again.
right.
Just for elbows, right? Like,
These are all like, despite the fact that some of them may look the same, these are all actually different variants of David and Octavian. Right. Not one of them is the same as the rest. And that's what I was going for.
There's subtle engineering differences, like which smokestacks they use or which head sculpt they use. Like people didn't even know that, like for example, Slaughter and Poison and Tromo have a different head sculpt when compared to like the regular ones, because I think Tromo is the only version of the mold to use like the evil parts and also have like the new legs, right? So it's kind of funny, like when you actually dive into them, like how different they are, despite looking very similar from a distance.
yeah, there are rolling differences through the molds. It's crazy, but it is a fantastic mold.
I think they're going to release a new version of the mold. I think that they're going to take the lessons they've learned from all of these current releases and re-engineer the figure in general. Because they've released now it's up to 15 different versions or some shit. I don't know.
You would know better than me. Oh, so you think they'll like take the optimum parts and throw it out there?
Yeah, there's no reason for them not to. You know, the first one was released 4 years ago at this point. They can take all of that knowledge they've gained and re-engineer the figure around it. And I'm almost certain if they were to do it again, there wouldn't be a faux chest. It would be a real one.
I'm trying to think, like, it wasn't even that long ago. Like, I think it was like 2 years ago.
I think David was 2021 actually.
Really? So
well,
2.5.
I bought Tromo. Again, Tromo was like this 12th fuse of the mold, and like I remember Tromo came out in like March of 2022. So by that point, if they'd already put out like maybe like 9 or 8 uses, actually, I can just Google the TFW thread, man. What am I doing? Let me see.
Yeah, I don't think it was like a very long time ago. But yeah,
they
I
just
mean,
have a really high frequency. It feels like a really long time, right?
yeah, I mean, I think what they could do is, yeah, I mean, look, a company, New Age has like exploded in the past 4 years, where if they wanted, like, they could just keep pumping out these remolds and reissues of Optimus Prime, and I hope they don't fall in that into that crack. Because to me, that's where companies then lose the interest of the fans. Like, I think it happened to Make Toys when they were doing Seeker after Seeker after Seeker. I think they got to keep moving. But, I mean, New Age seems very good about continuing to also release additional figures. It doesn't seem to be slowing them down. I believe they must have their own factory.
They do. They own their own factories. That's how their release frequency, their volume is so high.
Yeah.
They own their own
Not
factory
surprised.
completely.
Yeah, it's like they have to at this point. And it almost seems like Magic Square does not.
No.
I'm talking about a bottom tier company for me.
So
I refuse to purchase Magic Square products.
is that like a materials thing for you, or is it a design thing?
When I evaluate a figure, I have, everybody has their own categories, and the two biggest ones for me are if it converts or if it transforms, how smooth is it? Because it has to follow some sort of form and function for it to transform from one mode to the other in a logical way. And what does it feel like in my hand? Not the, I just got this in hand and it feels so good kind of way. That's not what I'm talking about. Because you can tell, I own New Age Devastator, and I owned Magic Square Devastator. And the difference in just how you handle it is far and away different. And the New Age material quality is that much higher. And that is likely because they own their own factory. But I have that stupid oversized KO and Menosaur set.
Yeah.
And I can't get rid of it. It's that nothing that they've ever produced, and these are really the only things I've looked at, but nothing they've ever produced has any sort of cohesion in either mode. There's always something wrong. You can never get things to fit like you would think they fit.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, like, there's a number of figures that I picked up that are Magic Square that, like, they almost always seem to find their way on the chopping block for me. There are a few that I do have that I like, but it's not like I was going through my accessories to, like, reorganize them a couple of weeks ago, and I realized, like, I don't know when it happened, but at a certain point, New Age far and away became, like, the most prolific company in my collection. At some point, like, I feel like I just kind of fell asleep and woke up and I've got like dozens of New Age figures, and I keep them. I like them. I don't even think about getting rid of them usually.
I can show my dislike of Magic Square in a very apparent way. That Devastator is the only figure I've ever actively sold. I have not figures that I've taken down off shelves. They end up in storage. And I don't sell them. That figure I disliked so much, I just straight up sold it at a loss. I think I picked it up for $250 and I sold it for $200 shipped. I spent 5 hours trying to get that thing into its combined mode, and even when I was done, it wasn't done.
Right. Yeah, I know. Like, you were done. That was it. Oh, I got you, man.
Actually, no, it's one of two that I've sold, and the other one I sold because I got the upgrade for it. I had sell, and that's the only transformation that's ever defeated me. It's the only one that I never came close to completing because it was too pointy. It stabbed me. It said, I don't like you. I'm going to fight you every step of the way. I said, all right, I'm done. I'm going to put you back in robot mode. I'm going to set you on a chair. And then 2 weeks later, Hazlight Unicron showed up, and that was it. I sold it for what I purchased it for.
I think you sold me a couple of Iron Factory figures at one point when you were cleaning out, right?
Possibly. But I didn't sell them because I didn't like them. I sold them because my collection is in a space probably where they don't fit in anymore. And not that they don't fit in. I don't fit with them anymore, not the other way around.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to call you out like, oh no, you do sell things, but I was trying to think actually, like, when you just bought a few of my figures, and I was like, and I was printing up the label for it, and I'm like, I've seen this guy's name before. And, like, I started looking through it, and I realized, like, oh yeah, like, I bought some Iron Factory figures from you.
Well, sometimes it's moving
Yep.
it's moving them onto a better home. I sold Magic Square Devastator because I couldn't actually stand having it in my own home.
Yeah, that's selling it out of hate, not selling it out of love.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so like like you just recently bought like a Fans Hobby Wheelblade from me, and then the two New Age Van Brothers, and like for me, like I love those figures. I'm just at a spot like I can't keep everything that I love anymore. You know, it's the space is finite, and also like I'm falling down this Flame Toys rabbit hole. At a certain point, someone's gonna get on the sacrificial, block. But it's interesting. I do think that, that might be an interesting topic for a future. Like, why do we decide to part with some figures? But there's always a lot to unpack with it. Let me ask you. So we went through a lot of your. Normally, I ask biggest disappointments. We went through a lot of disappointments. Anything major that we didn't talk about?
Fucking Toy World Tactics waistcoat. That figure sucks so goddamn much. I'm not willing to sell it to anybody else. I don't want to inflict that pain on anyone.
So what
Goddamn,
sucks
that
about
figure's
it?
bad.
What sucks about it?
So all of the things I look at in a figure, it does absolutely none of them. It doesn't stand up on its own. It has weaker ankles than Swoop. I could not get that figure for the life of me to actually stand on its own 2 feet, and that is a critical failure.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't be expected to buy your product and then fix it myself. That is trash. You don't deserve it to exist if the consumer has to fix your product.
Everybody comes out with like but if you flip this lever and glue this on. And I love, there was one video where Bobby again, like I love his take on it. He goes, I know that I could glue it myself. I don't want to glue it myself. I want them to have glued it before it got to me.
I was converting it to truck mode, and there was this one little flap in the stupid side of the cab that whenever I went to go put the rest of the flaps together, it was just like, oh, I'm going to flip inside now. And the way it's designed, you can't get any leverage on it. So the one picture I posted of it in vehicle mode is from the opposite side where everything kind of came together correctly. Oh, I hate that figure. I can't believe it. They wanted to charge as much as they did when it was released.
It went for a premium, right?
Fuck,
Yeah, so Tactics waistcoat was like, I think there's a $210 version and a $260 package that came with like a stand that had like voice lines ripped from a cam rip of the movie. It wasn't like they got like the actual MP4 files and extracted them from the movie. They like put it through, they literally just ripped the movie audio, whether off YouTube or like a piracy site or something. Low quality too. Like I don't know how audio quality is measured, but it was dog shit. And they just put that in there and distorted it so they wouldn't get hit with like a copyright claim from Paramount or whoever, and put that out there. But Tactics waistcoat, I think, not only was it like one of those things where like you look at Toy World and like it's probably one of the reasons they dropped dead, rightfully so, deserved. But it was also like one of those things like looking at it now in the future, Tactics waistcoat is not only more expensive than like your average MP, it's more expensive than 3-0 Bumblebee Optimus, 3-0 Rise of the Beast Optimus, Magnificent Mecha Optimus, which is like a re-engineered 3-0 figure that transforms basically. Even like Takara's solo release of MP49B was only $250, even though the original was $500. Like it was literally one of the most expensive single releases of an Optimus Prime, and it blew chunks. Like it's like a notoriously horrible release in my opinion. Like I think it's one of those things that like kills a company in retrospect, and it did kill them eventually. I think they put a lot of money into Tactics waistcoat, and that didn't pay back, and then their World War II line was plagued by issues and endemic to the brand itself, and then they just dropped dead. So anyways, sorry about my lore jump in.
No, but they're not dead. Like it's the same designers at Zay.
Right.
It's the same 7 people. You know what I mean? Just hopping from brand to brand.
The Toy World like corporate or like the Toy World like materials or whatever they were using to produce their figures, like that's dead, right? Like there's a notable difference between Zeta and Toy World in terms of like, I guess like just like dog shit quality.
I don't
Like
know, man.
there was something Toy World was doing that just wasn't working. Like for whoever they were hiring or licensing to make those W because Zeta's QC is nowhere near as atrocious as Toy World's later releases. Man, those Toy World like World War II figures have to be like some of the most consistently bad QC along a single 3P line like ever. You know, like every single release had issues. So I genuinely think like some part of Toy World may have dropped dead. Like, yeah, obviously designers were poached by other companies or they shifted to another racket. But I think something actually like dropped dead with Toy World. But anyways,
Okay, we're gonna walk this off of the soapbox for just a moment.
yeah,
But thank you for that. Let me ask you, Boptimus Prime, what are some figures that you're looking forward to coming out?
Oh man. Some of the new Dead End. Look forward to that one in 2050.
Okay.
so
Without taking a shot, what are some real figures that are going to be released that you're looking forward to?
Some of the repaints of New Age Omega Supreme, specifically the blue one and the one that's just Dark Side. So I think those are going to be good figures. You know, the original is obviously probably one of the best versions of a Transformer ever released, but I think those two are going to stand with it as some of the best.
Dude.
yeah, I swindled Badger into buying the Dark Side one, so you know, it is
Yeah,
what it
because
is.
I wanted Scream. This has been my thing. I was like, not pre-ordering until Scream, and then that Dark Side one came out, and I'm like, this is probably the closest I'm ever going to get, so I might as well get it.
I'm looking forward to Delta Magnus from Iron Factory.
Yes! Oh,
I
dude.
That Ultra Magnus is probably my single favorite Legends figure.
It's so good, dude.
It stands above all, even including that Omega Supreme. I think
Yes. It's phenomenal.
City Commander is the best Legends figure I've personally ever handled.
It's just such a good release, man. It's so strong. And I love that they're releasing like a separate cab for it. And like you don't need it, but I'm like, I need it. You know? It looks fantastic.
When pre-orders open in a North American retailer, I'll probably pre-order it. I'm looking forward to Takara's Coneheads. Despite what everybody thinks, I actually really enjoy MP52
Dude, it looks
as
fantastic.
a figure.
Yeah, I mean, people give it shit, but it does look fantastic, you know?
I think one of the things is that MP figures have more outreach. They're produced at much higher quality quantities, right, than like your average 3P release, and they get a lot more media buzz. Like not every single Transformers fan will come across Deformation Space, Crimson Wings, but most Transformers fans will be exposed to MP52, whether it be through a news post or a YouTube video or an Instagram post. And I think there's like this anti-masterpiece counterculture or something that's like really good for reviewers to capitalize on. Like for example, Jobby made tons of engagement off of just like buzzword laden MP bad, Takara bad monologues, and since he's one of the most popular TF reviewers, obviously it translates to the fan base. But before I get too complicated, I feel like a lot of people who dump on stuff like MP52 aren't giving it a fair shake. But anyways.
Well, I went out of my way to actually get a Seeker from Make Toys and a Deformation Space Seeker. I don't like speaking to something that I haven't personally handled, and
Yeah.
both of them have their own set of strengths. Obviously, Deformation Space looked like it walked off the animation, but I don't. I made the point earlier. That's not something I care about. I don't. Put some sauce on it. Give it your own twist.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy. If I wanted to pick up a figure that looked like it walked off the screen, I would go get one of the Super 7 figures. They look like they walked right off the screen. For real. That line, that weird scale, whatever they're doing, they're the most accurate you're ever going to find. Period.
Did you handle both like the original run of the Make Toys and the recent like quote unquote reissues?
So I got the purple, the all purple Make Toys, so the reissue. I
Okay.
haven't handled one of the original three.
Neither have I. I heard that the recent run like does not feel good.
I'm it's $100 figure. You can compare it so if you're specifically comparing between a Make Toys release and that Takara release, it's $100 figure versus a $200 figure, and the material quality is going to end up being different no matter how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad figure, but it is an aged figure.
Right.
That's the difference. That's where I think everybody gets hung up on with Make Toys, and they do show their age. They don't quite have the level of engineering that
Right.
Takara puts into their figures, and you can tell.
But it's probably the easiest transformation of those three, right?
Oh, definitely. Deformation space, horrible. It gets in its own way. It has terrible tolerances,
Yeah.
and it's too tight in some places and not tight enough in some other places. And there's one point in the transformation where you're trying to flip the wings around, and one wing part is trying to turn one way, but oh wait, you got to turn another wing part the other way, and then the whole thing has to flip around,
Yeah.
and then you have to do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around and hope that it's right at the end.
Yeah, it's a lot of flipping it inside out, it feels like, because of how parts on long hinges move through the axis of the unit. You know, it just feels like an inside out transformation.
And the suffering is compounded by poor tolerances, like you said. I think Deformation Space is Black Mamba. I own some of their MPM KOs. Not a fan. The tolerances are just not good, and that's one of the things which really can, like, especially on a super duper convoluted transformation already. That's just like bury me in a shallow grave, like just not near this figure.
I don't know.
It's all painted, and that's a problem. Companies don't take into it. And X Transboss is horrible for this. Companies don't take into account that there's going to be, a millimeter worth of extra material on the figure on every single surface. So you engineer to an unpainted surface and then don't re-engineer to the painted surface, and everything just ends up collapsing in on itself. Their stupid Ultra Magnus does that, and wow, is that transformation frustrating.
Dude, I've never transformed my commander stack because I just looked at it and I was like, I don't know, man. I recently picked up the G2 Monolith trailer. And
oh, God.
Dude, okay, so here's the thing. Menasaure's G2 colors hits me right in the feels. And there's not, like, I wish DX9 finished theirs. They never did. They never will. And I could wait for the New Age one, but I'm impatient. And I saw this thing on deal for $200, and I bought it. And there's this one fella on YouTube called Transforms Into a Guitar. And he has like a whole bunch of saxophone videos, but he's got 3 videos that are transforming X Transbot's Gravestone trailer, and he walks you through every single step, and he tells you like where to put your fingers, how much pressure to apply, everything. It's a 40-minute video to go from one mode to the next. It took me 2 hours to go through that video. As soon as I converted it to like combined mode, I was like, fuck, I'm all in on this. Now it looks amazing, dude.
Yeah, but getting there is like a blood sacrifice for your first child. And you're like, all right, well, I have to sit down and dedicate my afternoon to this.
I was like, there's no way this... I was like, it came in and I was like, okay, I got this guy's video. It's 30 minutes. This is going to take me 30 minutes. I'm going to be fine. 2 hours later, I was like, well, I just wasted a weeknight,
Yeah, the first time I transformed my gravestone was exactly like that. And I swear I almost snapped it in half at one point.
You can snap it in half by not like through like just negligence during transformation because of how like the whole thing is just connected on the front panel and like nothing on the sides. You're just resting these little tines inside tabs. It's a bonkers way to do it. Nobody wanted the base mode. It could have been 4 limbs that folded into a box instead,
Listen. Real warriors are forged in the circle of hell that is XTB transformations. Okay, that is a growth experience, the lived
Well,
moment, I
well,
guess.
fuck. I don't want the next generation of fans to have to go through that.
It's I love. Okay, so here's the thing: XTB swings for the fences, and I love that about them. But at a certain point, it's just like you want to be like Keith. Nobody needed the base mode. Nobody needed the base mode. If you didn't put the base mode in there, it would have been a knockout success. It would have been the Menasor to have.
I mean, they're putting a voice box into their God Bomber Optimus Prime or whatever. God
Nobody
Raijin.
wants that. I'm sorry, dude.
I'm pretty sure most people watched Master Force dubbed anyways, the fan dub. Are they gonna pull like the Karyudo Studio fan dubs onto the voice box? Or is it
Okay,
gonna be,
then it would be worth it.
then like the 4 or 5 people who watched it sub, like, let's go, 2 customers.
Dude, I don't even need lights. But I get that some people like lights. I don't need a sound box, dude. I don't need it.
This reminds me of XTB Fuzz. Like I was looking at that thing and I see the interior of the car and I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing. Oh my god, flashing lights. And then I realize that it's actually a piece of cancer. So it's like,
Oh man, flipping Fuzz's front end around out of his arms and 38 flips later, and you're just like, all right, I gotta set this aside for a half hour and then come back to it.
Dude, it's such a thing. So, okay. A lot of great figures that are coming out that you are excited for, and a lot of them are coming out relatively soon. Anything that you would like to see that hasn't gotten a teaser or release, a character you'd love to have a figure of?
The Veritech Jetfire?
Lucky Cat?
No.
Oh, okay. You just mean like yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so all the Jetfires go by the animation model, which is correct. That's fine. But I want an actual, like a fan's toys to come through and go, here's the toy Veritech.
Right.
I don't know how much experience you guys have with Veritechs of the, quote unquote masterpiece style and scale. They all suck.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
I bought that stupid God of Flame, whatever.
Ooh,
ouch. I was so glad I got to cancel my pre-order on that, dude.
Macross and Robotech are my second favorite franchise in the cartoon world, and I was super excited because it really legitimately is a premium painted figure, and they understand how to engineer the tolerancing around the paint. It's just that the engineering in general is not great.
I'm like looking for it.
You go watch Bobby Skullface's video, and he snaps the rear of it off, and he's like, he didn't even understand how he did it. He's like, it's broken. Ow! I was just trying to flip it around.
I missed that video. I gotta watch it. But yeah, like I saw this.
It looks fantastic, even in just a picture. It looks
right.
It's legitimately one of the best looking figures that I own, even when compared to the non-transforming figures from Flame Toys. It's such a premium painted figure. It's just too sad that it's one, $250, and two, not worth half that price.
I remember when they first teased it, I think they kind of got swept up in the pre-order success, because when they first teased it, it was at a much lower price point. I pre-ordered at the original price point. I think it was like 180, 150 or 180. And then like every week after that, it jumped up like $50 in cost. Like, but I still had my early pre-order. But at a certain point, like I watched videos of people handling it, and I'm like, I don't even want to pay $150 for this thing. And I just canceled it.
Yeah, I mean, because every single Transformers fan who wants a Veritech Jetfire felt like they had their prayers answered, right? Like a real toy Jetfire, not like the... I love New Age's EX Skyfire, but like
That's
it's
a
not
deco, right?
Exactly, like it's fun and it looks great and it's a great toy and it's one of my favorites in my collection, but it's not toy Jetfire, right? Like it's just not the same thing. And even with the upgrade parts, it's still like
It's not.
They look great, but it's still not like what we really want, right? Like we want this in the photo, and I think everyone got too hyped before they realized like this company doesn't really actually make transformers or converting figures that you can handle reliably. That's just not like their slant. It's unfortunate.
Well, even Bandai, the company that is supposed to be able to build these figures, doesn't build them very well. I have
Wow.
one of their DX. Is it DX the one that's the
Yeah.
highest high-end? Yeah, I have their DX Hikaru.
I saw that one. I was trying to look for that picture. It looks
Well,
phenomenal.
I'll give you a glimmer of hope. 3-0 is making a VF1 Valkyrie, so
Well, I mean,
and it
with
does
their track
convert.
record,
It does convert as well.
Really? Well, I guess
Yeah,
a
it
Valkyrie is something that's pretty easy to convert, right?
Yeah, well,
Well-
3-0 has branched into combiners and converting stuff with their Dan Kuga, so we'll see how their Valkyrie is.
yeah. So one of the big things as to why their Transformers don't convert is Hasbro doesn't
Allow them
license.
to.
Yeah, they don't license the conversions, which is why party skirts that.
Oh, okay.
Carefully skirts that line of getting just close enough. They don't call them conversions for that reason, because Bandai or
They call them deformations, actually, is a common phrase.
transformation, deformation are okay. If you call it a conversion, you're gonna get sued.
That's interesting that like you could call it a transformation but not a conversion.
Well, you can't trademark something. You can't trademark like transformation. It's too common a term.
Uh-huh.
But conversion is not so common, so you can't.
Yeah,
That's crazy, man.
yeah, but a lot of 3Ps opt for deformation, right? Like, especially like their Weibo posts or whatever. Like it always translates to like deform,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is less common. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see that 3-0 one. I think you'd be too. Hopefully it turns out good and we don't have like a God of Flame 2.0 at a bigger scale.
I don't think they'd release it. Like I have so much trust in Flame Toys.
Oh, I mean this is a 3Z, but
Oh, even 3-0.
Yeah.
Like I trust them, man.
Well, they have their own missteps. That Jetfire they released, the one that combines with whatever Revenge of the Fallen.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't handled any of their movie stuff.
I mean, I've heard and watched reviews and saw that didn't go so well.
Yeah, so I own the Optimus actually. That's like my I get it non-transform moment. It's pretty awesome on itself, and it's not really that compromised for the combination. But from what I've seen, the reason I haven't picked up the Jetfire is A, the price, and B, it looks like otherworldly phenomenal, but the process of getting there, it's just like it was too ambitious an undertaking. You know what I'm saying? I think they should just release like 3 separate figures, or just like Prime and a Prime and Jetfire armor, because not that many people are lining up for Baber's Jetfire. But that's just my 2 cents.
Oh, I gave up on putting together Flame Toys, Victory Leo, and Star Saber. That figure just can't hold its own weight.
Yeah, too chunky. Too
Yeah, I
Phenomenal looking.
yeah.
Good lord.
Yeah, I actually just got Victory Leo in the mail today. I like totally sniped on eBay and it was awesome. It felt great. But yeah, I'm not even going to try to put them together. For that style, I've got the Planet X offering and that's in combined mode and that's fine for me. For the 3-0, I mean for the Flame Toys, I'm just going to put them each separate on the shelf. They look fantastic. Cool. Well, hey, Boptimus Prime, thank you for joining us. Anything else that you want to kind of share with the people? Anything that you're doing? Any projects or like anything you want me to link?
I guess I can share that I'm looking to replace every piece of furniture that my Transformers goes on.
Well, okay.
So my idea originally was to curate a museum-style space. One where anyone who looks at it goes, I get it. I understand what this is. And I've gotten to the point where I can't do more with it. Anything that I want to do to enhance it requires the same amount of money that replacing it would cost. So that's the next piece of how this works. I don't need figures anymore. I'm almost done. Now it's to perfect the space the figures go in. So that's the next big thing.
So you're gonna have to keep us apprised of the steps. I'd love to see, as you start to build that out. I'd love to see that transition, man. If
Yeah,
you,
one of the big things is I don't want dust on the figures. So I was
Yep.
originally trying to figure out with Billy's how to put glass on them without it looking not unprofessional, which is a kind way of putting it for most people who put glass on Detolfs and Billies, and unprofessional is a kind way of putting it. But I couldn't figure out how to do it professionally. I have to live up to my own standard. None of this is for anyone else. This is all for me, and I have to live with it. That's my big thing. And that's why I don't judge other displays
right.
too hard, because in the end, all the people that keep their figures in, standing row, like they're on a conveyor belt, like, oh, I just came off the line. That's not for me. But if you only have a limited amount of space, and conceptually you may not want your figures to look like that, totally fine. That's on you. But I have to live with what I put together. So I want it to be the best it can be for me, and that's the next thing, is that concept.
Dude, that's fantastic. I think look, just like you said, whatever anybody does for their own space, that's fine, because the only person that you have to please is yourself. That aside, I think what you're doing is fantastic, and I think that few of us get to that point where we kind of say, you know what, instead of spending another $100 on a masterpiece, let me take a look at this shelf that I have that has $3,000 worth of figures, and it's sitting on a $200 piece of furniture. Maybe I need to try and figure this out so that they're a little bit more commensurate and respectful of the value that I have on the shelf. I totally love what you're setting out to do there, and I'm definitely excited to see more.
Right. That's a large, both monetary and time undertaking, because whatever it is, it's going to have to be put together as a custom fabricated piece, and it can't be a single piece. It's going to have to be modular in and of itself.
Yeah.
And for anybody who's looking to actually get to the point of having a space like mine, the Billy and whatever they call it now, the oversight system, is perfect for it. If you want to curate a museum style space, it's not stupendously expensive. I think in total I spent maybe $1,500 over the course of 2 years to get the lights and the shelves. It's not very expensive, and it looks great. If you don't want, rainbow coloring and all that jazz, if you want to curate a space where you're just gonna sit in the space itself, because if you're not sitting in the space, do whatever you want. But if you want a museum style space and you live or work in that space, I can't more highly recommend something like this.
Yeah, it looks fantastic, dude.
It does. Looks great.
It's approachable, like you said. So I think that's a big deal. I think that's a lot of it. I think people kind of what they do is they buy a bunch of figures, and so they go, oh shit, I need something to hold it. And they buy a piece of furniture, then they buy more figures, then they buy another piece of furniture. There's something to be said for the consistency that you have when you're actually thinking about how it all looks together. And I think that comes across very strongly in your collection. And I'm super excited to see what that next pro level is that you take, because I'm just not at that point in my journey, but it's incredibly gratifying to be able to see this screams hard work. You know what I mean? It screams care. It's clearly not something that was haphazardly done.
Well, one of the biggest things, so last year I had a flood in my home that got into my office. And one of the big things that changed was the flooring itself. We put down luxury vinyl panel flooring, which is just fake wood, basically. And the difference between carpet and hardwood actually made a bigger difference than the shelves themselves. And let me see if I can find a picture of the before space, because it's the light difference, right? The way the light reflects, carpet absorbs light. So even at their brightest, this space looks extremely different. Let me see if I can pull a picture from before the change.
Yeah, I could totally see that. because here, I mean, with your flooring, it reflects a lot of light, which I think helps for like especially the bottom shelves and.
No, this is the closest you're gonna get. Yeah, it's closest. That's fine. So this is. I'm about to send you this. This is before the incident happened.
Mm-hmm.
I keep a fairly comprehensive, chronological order of. So that's carpet, and the space looks dimmer, even though it kind of looks mostly the same. It's just a little bit, dimmer.
Yep. No, you can totally see it, dude. Yeah, I mean, especially like where you could really see it is the shelves that did not have lighting, right? Like you could like really see where.
Yeah, it's
a big deal.
Everyone. I'm not going to say this. This is not a statement. Everyone is a royal statement. It is going to reach the point where it's no longer about what goes on the shelves. It has to be about the space. And watching the collection critique series on Bobby's channel, they're harsh, very much so. Sometimes unduly harsh in my opinion. But
I feel like he's doing it for comedic effect at a certain point.
Yeah, there are some where it's obvious, but there are people and there are collectors who obviously don't understand how to care for their figures. They'll have those Walmart plastic shelves that sit in their collection space, and then they'll have a HasLab Unicron sitting on top. Right. So you spent between $700 and $3,000 on this figure, and it's on a shelf that's rated for 25 pounds, and that takes up 15 of it.
Or like, I mean, I think one of the things that he said is like, also people will say things like they can't afford certain figures, and then they'll turn around and buy an entire wave of deluxes, and I think that makes, I think that rings a lot of truth. I'll tell you though, like, recently the 4 Dummies critiqued Bobby's space. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did think he was a little bit defensive. Meanwhile, he had just spent the past, 7 years. Like, anybody who sent him pictures, he took every shot he could,
Oh, yeah, for sure. And yeah, he was defensive. And his space, I go out of my way to look at other spaces of collectors, like TM Reviews and...
Yeah.
I don't know if MGO had ever released a video like that, but they have collection critiques of their own. And I think people in general don't don't map out how their collection is going to be completed.
Yeah, I agree.
And a lot of it is just have the foresight to plan the space first. And even if you have a small corner, you can make the corner look great. There was one where this guy had a nook and he had, just comic books in it, but they were all arranged in such a way that that corner was stronger than the rest of the space.
Yeah, I mean, you could pull off a lot if you put some thought into it, right?
Yeah, there are budget. I say budget. This is a very privileged community. You're spending between $25 and $3,000 on a toy. There are budget options that end up looking good. You don't have to buy Billy's. You can buy whatever the Target version is. The shelves won't be as modular, but you can also buy strip lights that have batteries in them, and they look good as well, and like $10 a strip. I think that's what I want to work to bring to the community, is understanding how to map out in your own head. Or maybe, some people can't do that. That's how I do things. Map out on paper how you can enhance not only your own figure collection, but how the collection is presented to others and to yourself. That's ultimately what it matters. That's how it looks to you.
I don't think I've ever seen any content like that. So I think that if you decide to go into that, I think there's a big call for that. Because just like you said, it's not about how much you want to spend. It's just about how much thought do you want to put into it. And it's completely fine in the middle of your collection journey. Let's say you didn't have the foresight to map it out. You could always take a step back. You could always reassess. You could always start with a subsection of it and just make that look good. You know, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing.
That's a hard mindset to not have when you're curating, because you're gonna get the one that is curated,
Right.
and then you're gonna look at the rest and you're gonna go,
That's trash.
this isn't the same level. Not that.
Yeah.
So I have to be careful with how I word things, because it can be misconstrued very easily. It's not that it's not trash. It's just it doesn't live up to the same standard you set for yourself.
Right. That's right. No.
Yeah, I'm not picking on you or anything like that, but I come from
you can pick on me, believe me.
I come from a position where I have to be able to impart knowledge on others in my industry, and a big portion of that is not making the others feel like you're speaking down to them. You have to speak at them, even if they are newer to the industry or newer to in this case, the collecting game. Understanding the logic behind how words work is important.
Sure.
And that, in my opinion, is the difference between a toxic and a non-toxic content creator.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think that there's a lot of value to saying to somebody if they're on a path where, you know what, you're really just going to make more work for yourself and you're not going to like the end, what you get to. I understand you're saying that you want to just do this, but you should consider down the road X, Y, and Z needs to happen.
Hey, I could be totally wrong. That's fine. I'm just I'm a dog chasing cars, basically. You don't know if I'm a person or I'm a dog on the internet, and that's fine. I don't have to impress you. I have to impress me.
That's right.
And not having the nemesis in that other Billy is... I'm just gonna leave it alone. It's gonna stand there until that nemesis gets here, and then I'm gonna try. And then I'm gonna feel it out. I don't like it right now, though.
Yeah, dude, I'm looking forward to getting it, but yeah, listen, it's a great time to be a collector right now. You have so many options. I think that's probably where we'll leave it off for the evening. I wanted to go 20, 30 minutes. Here we are, an hour and a half in. I have a feeling we could talk all night about this stuff. But anyway, I will thank you so much for coming on and for opening up your home to us and showing us your collection and also sharing your knowledge with us. So thank you very much again.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure, being able to speak with other collectors. I don't have anyone, the vast majority of us don't have local communities.
Right. No, absolutely. Well, thanks again, and I look forward to the future. Maybe when you get at a point down this path, where you could show us how the upgrades are going or the redecorations. I would love to see how that's going, man. I hope you document it. Cool. I really hope you document it, because I think that a lot of the times this stuff happens and then we just see the before and after pictures. And I think like your journey would be very valuable to other people.
Yeah, for sure. If I can help others get to where they want to go, but for me, that's part of how I live my life, basically.
That's awesome, dude. Well, thanks again to Boptimus Prime for joining us. Solus, thanks again for lurking, and to everybody who tuned in while we were streaming, and to everybody watching.